included with Twitch Prime. Rated T for Teen.
We're all tied up here at HGC North America between Gale Force Esports and Team Freedom. Sitting at 1-1 so far. We had an interesting Warhead Junction game, a lot of globals, and then we had Braxis Holdout, where Gale Force Esports struggled under the pressure, the rotations of Team Freedom.
And it feels like Team Freedom, they are very much going to have to find themselves an engineer on the squad because the pain train's hit a halt. It has hit a stop after the last game, and if you want to keep it going, keep it rolling on through, somebody's got to find a way to clear all the bog, that we got Gale Force throwing in front of it.
Like a brake repair specialist.
Exactly what we need.
I'm sure Kira can figure something out, do some tinkering, some MacGyvering.
I mean, the guy went to college. He's got something going, right?
Yeah, let's see where Game 3 is, and if that's maybe a place where they could start getting the train going again. It's going to be Cursed Hollow.
I think that's a good place, to be able to move that out here. We started this series talking about the divide of maps. And if there was to be an overlay, I do give this to Gale Force, but I feel like this is one of the better ones for Freedom. It's like their Tier 3, Tier 4 section where they don't mind it as much. This is not as lopsided as Braxis is really what I'm trying to indicate here. It is, even though they do have a heavy divide, this is the closest thing to an overlap. So nice game for being the tied match here for the two.
And we wouldn't have it any other way. We want it to be a close series all the way down to the finish line. Both of these teams desperate for a win in this, setting up for HGC Finals, for playoffs, for the finals. Gale Force Esports, after losing to Space Station, needs this victory even more so since Rule 20 has finally overtaken them in standings.
Who bans the Abathur? Who bans the Medivh?
Who bans
Nobody.
the TAS?
Tassadar is the first ban. What do we see, Gale Force? Which one do you want to rid of? Or is it neither now, knowing that it is the TAS ban? Nope. We are going to ban out the Abathur. So is Freedom feel the Medivh is worth it?
No
they
way.
Go with the ETC.
Finally, Freedom gets Zugrug back on ETC. But what can Gale Force get out of this now? Genji is still up and available. Malthael, Dahaka, if they are moving more into the global route that we saw in Game 2.
I feel like Dahaka has got to be one of those two for Gale Force Esports. ETC coming into the meta and being prioritized is both a gift and a curse. No, joke intended there, considering it's Cursed Hollow. But the fact that other teams are willing to take away one of the few globals in the game is got to be something that hurts those members. So when you see the ETC picked up, one of your few should be higher priority, at least if you feel like the triple global you prioritized in the last game led to, the success that you had. They are taking a surprising amount of time for this not being a very unpredictable draft phase so far. So that is a bit concerning, but we'll find out. 4 seconds remain.
Dahaka Genji.
The Dahaka, again, makes a lot of sense. The Genji's no surprise either.
Yes.
I just felt like the Dahaka to me was a must-have with the ETC considering the meta, and again, because Gale Force and how they play.
Next two picks for Team Freedom. Support-wise for Freedom, they have also differed like the Warriors have between Freedom and Gale Force. A lot more focus on Rhaegar, and this might be a place where we see Freedom get their support early and then ban a support against Gale Force. Warrior is also a possibility if they want to limit the pool of King Caffeine. If
the members of Team Freedom are not going into a melee hypercarry, I hope this is a new third. To go for a map like Cursed Hollow where wave clear isn't as important, which we know the Rhaegar wave clear factor is a huge thing. Yes, camps are important too, but boss control is the win condition. You have an ETC, Mosh Pit, if he goes into it, huge boss control with Divine Shield. It is nearly 100% going to be yours. They are going to step away from it. They go with the Grey Main still, the Rhaegar, but they have a Grey Main, which makes the melee assassin argument a little bit healthy.
Totally makes sense to have Rhaegar and Grey Main together, and both of those are good heroes for murking. It just seems like for Collusion, I don't think he's played Uther once in Part 2. He is way more focused on having either Rhaegar or maybe a Lucio for Malthael. He's even picked Lucio not against Malthael. It's just Rhaegar's #1, Lucio's #2, which is the only reason that I suggested that, even though Divine Mosh would be pretty cool.
It's just the boss. Cursed Hollow is a map where it's either Curse is going to be your win condition, and most of the time you can't rely on that one, or it's going to be that boss. And so having that reliably is always a nice tool. But again, the Grey Main Rhaegar and more the diversity of the Rhaegar. You talked about Collusion never playing the Uther. That was what I was trying to kind of highlight between the experience of Akaface and the youthfulness of Collusion is he has a different priority, very apparently, because he maybe hasn't I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but experience the older versions of Uther, so more old school support players are more prone to favor an Uther when he is in the meta than, again, these kind of new blood supports are.
I find that ban on Malthael so interesting because for all of Part 2, Team Freedom has not played Malthael at all. But it is the general counter in a solo lane to Dahaka. Just seems like Freedom is more likely to pick Illidan still as the counter to Dahaka in the solo lane than a Malthael hero.
So with that ban out, the standard Uther from Team Freedom. No surprise to see the support choke out from them. What do we see Gale Force go into then? I imagine a Falstad will be picked up in this rotation. It's just what else? Falstad, we need a main warrior. That DPS isn't too reliable, but it does provide the boss control.
I would say Kef probably is going to play a noob here, but it's more like a noob or Muradin. There's one more that he's been playing on occasion. Garrosh.
But Garrosh into an ETC.
I don't think it's going to be Garrosh.
I don't think it'll be the Garrosh either. I was thinking about the Garrosh, but I actually think it'll be Muradin of all of those if he goes into anyone. Brightwing, Li Ming, we're yet to find out. But the Brightwing double reset still. The Dahaka still. This is close-ish to the composition we just saw Gale Force run on Warhead.
Yep. It is another big battleground.
Yeah. Give me a while. I got to think about this. I'm feeling something. I'm not sure what it is yet. Got to sort out the good old emotions going on.
While that's happening over there, over here, we're figuring out what these final 2 picks are for Team Freedom. We've got Zagreb Collusion. Greymane can differ. What is Cure going to play? Is he willing to play Illidan here now? Didn't have the easiest time last game. Arthas is still up 2.
I would really like Arthas. I hope he picks the Arthas, actually. I wanted to try and get that across because the counter momentum that would provide and having a secondary warrior into the composition, the double reset. Last game, when we saw the double reset confirmed, there was no recovery point for Team Freedom with what they had picked, with how much they had remaining. But here they have one. They go with the Anub instead, and then a Gul'dan. A Gul'dan. I'm going to say it a third time. I hope I believe it. A Gul'dan's game. What?
Gul'dan gives some good boss presence, boss control with Glorifies.
I mean, the boss control is about the only major argument that stands out for the Gul'dan factor, right?
He gives the poison damage for Greymane to follow up on. We've got ETC is likely the side laning hero.
Brightwing cannot out-heal an Echo Corruption build. That's an argument. If you, especially late game, if you hit post 16, 1E, Brightwing just goes, okay, we can't fight anymore. Sorry, boys.
Look at the focus on King Caffeine, too. A Nubarak and ETC. Certainly a Muradin now.
Certainly, but they're not picking it, which means they have concern of going into the Muradin. There he is.
What would
Jolly and nice there.
The concern have been for this Jolly Muradin?
I always just view it because it looks like I guess the candy is a Jolly Rancher or something. I don't know.
Oh, I was wondering if you thought with that big beard he was Santa Claus.
I guess kind of a little bit of that too. He does seem happier than his other skins. You know, he's not worried about kicking so much ass. And I'm like, calm down, Muradin. Okay, you don't have to be angry. Okay, you're the middle child. It's cool. I don't actually know if he's a middle child. I watched his trailer.
Some of the things that come out of your mouth. You're the middle child. Today I learned Muradin is in fact the middle child. It explains so much.
It does. He just needs to stop drawing for attention, accept his place. His parents love him.
Well, we've got very close to the same type of composition for Gale Force.
We do, and I have not figured out what those emotions are yet. I thought I couldn't tell if it was. It's one of two. It's either like oh, this is going to be ugly again, or it's going to be this isn't the same math problem it was last time. And I do think part of it is that. Like I talked about the lack of recovery available, and the last time it was picked up when it was just here's the checkmate. Now it was like hey, we're going to do this again. Would you like to maybe do something different this time? Just you go ahead. And they did do something different. I just don't know whether or not the response had enough behind it for me to suddenly go, all right, Team Freedom, you did it. You knocked it out the park here. Just clocked it.
Well, Dread is in a glass case of emotions, but we're going to go to game number 3 anyway on Cursed Hollow. So let's get into it with the teams tied 1-1 as we get ready for game 3.
I am an glass case of emotion is what we say, because you can see them all. They're overflowing.
You don't get that reference?
No.
You are dead to me. We've reached a new low.
What is it then?
Anchorman.
Oh, I know. I've seen the film. Sorry, I'm not huge into comedy. What do we expect on Curse It All? Is anything going to change compared to what we experienced through the last game? And Dansky on Gul'dan. Maybe.
What's up?
He hasn't even taken a level 1. So what are we doing? Are we cheesing? Is there a mega cheese?
I don't think so. Give me a second. I'm going to look at Freedom. See the last time we had Gul'dan. We haven't from Dansky. Nope. I think this is their first competitive Gul'dan game.
Okay, so even weirder. Even wilder.
Yeah.
What is it? You haven't shown your wild. It's going to be Echo Corruption. I can't think of anything
know
cheese
it.
What is it?
Drain Hope build. Not Drain Hope. Drain Life build. To drain the hope of Gale Force.
If you're going to do that, you should have picked Leo.
That's true.
Banned out Ariel. There's a lot of better options. He's got a whole mini wave without even picking it. They want to hide it for a pretty big reason here. Dansky's never hit talents.
Oh, I just got echoed.
What?
Maybe he was just waiting to see if he had a bunch of people here so that he could stack.
You are correct. You are correct.
Okay.
And also we have to consider the fact that there really are no cheesy level 1s other than those 2 on Gul'dan that are even viable. So I don't know why I was hoping for, Dansky creating his own talent system, creating one at level 1 and then picking it, but we find the Echoed Corruption, and maybe that is the thought process. The Brightwing just can't out-heal it. It is going to be a problem. One big E, all 3 ticks hitting 1 target, 16 talent or not, doesn't matter. They are going to be dead. Calf there not landing that Stormbolt. Rather uncharacteristic considering it's him on a Muradin, and that was point blank there. Something to keep an eye out on.
Other laning setups, as we see Kira versus Akaface, Cal versus Butterfly, hanging in the top lane. Dahaka is in mid, but for the most part is hiding out whenever he doesn't need to be clearing out the wave, and that's really cool to see from a Dahaka because then Team Freedom don't know where he is for sure, and because of that need to play just a little bit safer and can't start sieging out as much as they would like maybe in that bottom lane.
I mean, we see also maybe another side argument there for Dansky going into that Gul'dan. The poison damage for Genji can't get the deflect for the entire duration, has to eat a lot of the damage, so you aren't losing that kind of trade. But why not Lunaro? There have been other heroes that have been picked for the same reason. Sonya with the Poison Spirit. There are a lot of heroes that do that.
And Brightwing does give spell armor with Pixie Dust. Li Ming had a chance to get Force Armor, but she went for Power Hungry instead, so wants to make sure that she has that additional spell power that she gets and more mana so she can stay and sustain in lane longer. That'll be useful for these long drawn-out fights over the tributes, as long as she can get the globes from the minion waves.
Brightwing ETC is the 1v1 on top, and the Giants are favoring Brightwing, which means they have a global up on top, they have a poor wave clear on the side of Team Freedom, and an advantageous 1v1. Gale Force is straight slaying this tribute before they even start channeling it with the situation they have found themselves in.
But Team Freedom are pushing back Gale Force as best as they can. Genji is looping around the side to be another person who can stall out the tribute being taken. Now Michael Udall stalked in.
They're going to try and get aggressive here. No drag used. Impale there. Dansky is going to be the first man to go down here. First blood for Gale Force Esports. But Nasmus comes in, finds him maybe on the wrong side of the battlefield. Goes into Worgen form. Gale Force shows mercy, and we find the first tribute still standing.
Awesome body blocks by Fan after he went after Dansky and using his deflect to deflect some of the tower shots.
Disengage Flask. GG. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Just barely survives that. Unfortunately, Collusion will not share the same fate as he goes down, and the stagger death for Team Freedom will continue.
Team Freedom here is just falling apart, crumbling under the pressure. Gale Force has managed to compose throughout this game, and here you see that top lane. That is the laning mismatch I was talking about. Brightwing. I mean, she's just a little fairy dragon. Yeah, she says some mean things that sound really nice, but her 1v1 situation into an ETC is about as good as it gets. I mean, she's a placeholder. ETC's a bad placeholder. She's like a pretty good one, again, because of that passive healing. I'm surprised with the rise of ETC within the North American scene, how comfortable teams are using them as a global before we're even 10.
Oh, and speaking of globals, Michael Udall has found Rhaegar sitting on the Bruisers, trying to take that using his ability to Merc against him and steal the bruisers and get that kill. No Rhaegar for 10 seconds as a second tribute is starting to spawn. Team Freedom need to figure out a solution for these globals because Gale Force Esports are everywhere. They can't allow people to go alone like they are to the mercenary camps if Gale Force are willing to invade that far into the base of Freedom.
They did have a moment there where they might have been able to have an advantage by having Gul'dan in an isolated lane throughout bottom, but no interrupt onto the tribute, and it's not going to matter. Fan getting some responsive pressure here towards the top lane, but it's all about that curse point that Gale Force has found themselves into, and more importantly, what's going to happen with the bosses over the next few minutes as Heroics are rounded. Stormbolt did not connect there for Caffeine. As we just move on throughout Cursed Hollow, it is more just, you know, Freedom trying to stop the bleeding and Caffeine and friends making a couple of plays.
But they're stopping the bleeding involves all of Freedom coming up to the top lane. There's nobody in the bot except Greymane, who is getting the Rhaegar, who is getting the mercenary camp.
Dansky's going to be chased down by Mike Udall. That's the first kill of this skirmish, and Heroic choices are picked up by Gale Force Esports. Only 2 locked in for now as they start up this boss.
Gale Force looking at the boss. Heroic abilities far forward for Team Freedom. That next tribute hasn't started yet. Rhaegar just doing what he can now, moving back down to the bottom lane with the Giants he picked up. Tribute's going to spawn right next to this boss. Things look good for Gale Force.
It's just, I mean, the Nexus is really calling for Gale Force Esports with the spawning of all of this happening here. They're going to start this channel. Freedom cannot do anything about it. Rhaegar pushing through with those Giants on bottom. That is a silver lining for Team Freedom. Not the Rhaegar being on bottom, but the Giants are going to be pushing bottom while Gale Force wants to concentrate its efforts towards top. That's going to force Dahaka to translate down to bottom because the Giants essentially negate the curse. So getting to that as fast as possible is a must for the members of Gale Force. And Freedom, when behind anytime they can control rotations over GFE, they have got to be very satisfied with themselves.
But Freedom still have to deal with the top, and Gale Force isn't letting off the pressure along with this boss. Freedom do have heroic abilities, and ETC now has stage dive, so he can join in the battle if the battle breaks out. Dahaka's still hanging out in mid. He's starting to sneak his way up, maybe to join with the rest of the team. The boss is about halfway down.
Boss halfway down. Keep wall down, more importantly. 25 seconds remain. Stormbolt lands onto Collusion. He's fine. Stormbolt, or excuse me, Stage Dive is used. The knock-up focus onto Akaface. He is gonna fall. No blink heal on out. Boss Slam goes down. Collusion and friends make it out as the Ancestral is used.
Ancestral's been used. Dansky healed up from that. Now a drag catches a new Barak.
Brilliant cleanse.
Very good cleanse from Collusion. Team Freedom stop the bleeding just barely before losing their keep. They do get the 1 kill on Brightwing, but they're still massively behind. No tributes to their disposal. They've lost 2 forts. They nearly lost a keep. That's going to be a problem because of all the globals that Gale Force Esports do have.
And we gotta really respect what are the true MVPs. Yesterday we gave some credit towards the minions. Now I feel like we have a shout out to that bottom giant. I mean, it's been a long curse, but I feel like he's the one who came out on top out of all of this said and done. Gale Force and Team Freedom, take note, he is just now going down. Can you imagine the world where that bottom fort goes down too? What this game would look like for Team Freedom? It would be almost irrecoverable, the lack of vision that they wouldn't have. And again, all thanks to that sweet, sweet Giants and the 13 talents here they're going to pick up. The lack of pressure displayed up onto top, or more so showing the pressure, has led Gale Force to start up this boss. ETC is going to hold the zone up there. And Freedom, they're looking for front walls. They're not worried about bosses.
No, they just want experience. They still have a fort in that bottom lane to help them in defending versus the boss. But they don't want to get any further behind so that they don't go into a string of Gale Force being able to get tribute after tribute and then all of a sudden deal with a secondary curse for Gale Force Esports. They were able to get through that first curse, just barely keeping a keep alive. They don't want to deal with another one of Gale Force. So now they move to the bottom lane to defend versus the boss. ETC is still on the top.
And it's all about what happens with this boss. Can Gale Force even force anything around it? Rhaegar showed it picking up the camp by taking it too late, and they aren't going to force in that window, so I think it's unrealistic that anytime we see the members of Gale Force, they are just more threatening the fort, and they will be successful there. A kill on ETC up on top, though, happened between Brightwing and Dahaka. Proud of themselves.
Yeah, double global taking out ETC is not what Team Freedom were hoping to do with that ETC. They wanted to make the circles of death happen with a stage dive and Horrify. Now they have to wait 13 more seconds until they can look for a fight. This is the time for Team Freedom to fight before Gale Force can get to 16. And with those globals, that 16 is going to be achieved pretty quickly.
And this is one of those moments where Team Freedom can't start going. Gale Force is looking to avoid the only fight that they can, win, and Team Freedom has to take the only fight they can get. And we know that that's going to be closing in the 16. Waiting out the tribute it seems unrealistic, especially with the spawn being on Gale Force Esports side of the map. I was going to say that I would like to see them, rather than taking their own knights, invade Gale Forces. That's the only camp Gale Force can go to. We oftentimes in NA, when teams get behind on Curse, they're never invading the one camp to force the fight. They think they'll get it around a tribute, but then the smarter team just walks away until the Talentier's there. Now
the Talentier isn't quite here for Gale Force, but they have the Brightwing in the top and Dahaka in the mid. ETC soaking for Team Freedom in the bottom. But if things get hairy, Brightwing can come in with an Emerald win. No, she took Blink Heal this game, so she can't separate out the team.
Oh, wow. That's going to need a Brightwing if they have any chance of holding off this tribute. Looks like the members of Gale Force Esports don't want to make that happen. Fan was the last man to make it go down. ETC responding for Akaface.
They're so close to 16. Nobody else now. It seems like Freedom finally have the right calculations in place to keep Gale Force from stalling them out.
That was a really interesting call for the members of Gale Force Esports. The minute I see that ETC, I generally would start and force that fight. Even if you don't get an advantageous fight, you at least get the stage dive out of them.
They're looking for it now.
They're going for it.
Stormbolt, Mike's walking up, hoping for the drag to pull Zugrug back in. But Freedom disengages in the nick of time back to their base to lick their wounds until 16.
And the boss up on top is now the next thing we've got to be focusing on. A breath of fresh air for Freedom having that tribute. They can avoid the awkward, not this top boss, but the bottom boss spawning into Curse Point that may unfold depending on how these tributes go through.
Yeah, but that keep is very low.
It's 11 minutes in. We also have to remember that 11-minute boss scaling is honestly really poor. It's how much siege potential do you have with your kit, and when you look at the rest of their characters, not bad, but none of them are great either. So I would say I'm not as concerned if I'm Team Freedom when I look at this boss. It's not like a normal, if that's an Illidan comp, a Greymane composition, things like that. I'm more scared. I mean, it's obviously something to consider, which is why they're hanging out, but I don't know if I'd be thinking about it that much with the 16 still far out of reach.
Tribute spawns nearby the boss at Freedom are inching closer to 16.
They see the boss started.
Dahaka is hanging out, has made his presence known to ETC in the bottom.
Dansky's got the Horrify. If they have any chance of stealing this, this is going to be up to him. The Gul'dan on the Money Pig hanging out in back. Stormbolt going to go through. Cleanse Force out of collusion. Gale Force backs out.
The boss re-engaged. Team Freedom still hanging around. I recognize it's been started again.
16 Talentier now picked up. Still going into that bonus damage for the Gul'dan. Now if he hits all three, not even a Brightwing with double Blink Heal can restore the damage output.
Needs 9 more stacks until he's finished Echoed Corruption 2.
Oh. Tribute won't be up for a long while. No curse point for either side. This is why in the draft we were talking about Mosh Pit, the Divine Shield Mosh Pit threat and what that would provide the boss control. These teams are absolutely terrified of giving up that objective here this late into the game. And now with the even Talentiers, we have another tribute spawning. Top right positioning. Dahaka still up on bottom. ETC's flanking around, but that is not an angle you traditionally want to move through. Cure showing no fear, though. He's going to man up, zone out Gale Force Esports.
Yeah, they've got the double warriors watching the primary point of entry into this tribute. With Nasmus watching all the way back, anchoring for Team Freedom, they will secure a secondary tribute and put them at Curse Point. Now there's 2 bosses available.
Akko Taco. Am I right? Now you gotta have to consider, well, what about when we get the curse versus where's the next tribute gonna spawn? Where is Gale Force? Team Freedom doesn't care. They're gonna start it up, but King Caffeine's coming to check it out. They only have 2 globals, and that won't be nearly enough here. So it's gonna be a reveal. Gale Force, they ended up seeing this and responding down below. And so they'll be able to pick up their boss as well. It's going to be just a flat trade.
All Freedom wanted was to get their own boss because it means that they don't have a boss barreling down toward that weakened keep, but they don't have a fort in the bottom lane either. So this still is fortuitous for Gale Force Esports because they know that their boss will head straight to a keep, whereas Team Freedom's boss still has to make their way through the fort. It lets them go back and get the bruisers and not be as hasty for the defense.
And what that actually does, now looking at the next curse too, is it makes it very topsy-turvy for Team Freedom. The odds of them being successful, this is huge. Spawning on bottom now versus if it had spawned up on top, because now they have to send the Brightwing the whole time to be able to delay with this. People are want to make this happen, because if the curse is spawned, then this boss is going to have free reign up on top. But it being spawning down below, members of Team Freedom, they are actually responding this a lot longer than I would have liked to see out of them. The Giants alone could have deterred it, and they relied on Zugrug to get the interrupt. Unable to do so. So sadly, the cool laning situation advantage Team Freedom could have had, again, seems to dissipate.
And they're still not out of the woods with the experience. They're a level behind Gale Force. Gale Force is doing their best to get to Storm Talents at 20. Only one camp up. It is the Giants of Gale Force, so they'll grab that. And that's toward, again, the top keep of Team Freedom. So at some point, someone will need to deal with it.
1E just dominated that entire well right there.
4 more stacks.
4 more stacks for that Echoed Corruption so we can get the bounce back. And 1 tribute away from Curse for either team. It's going to spawn here in 13 seconds on bottom. And we're still minutes away from whatever boss is going to come online. It's the biggest tail here is that 20. Gale Force, they're close. They're very close, and they've got globals. They could try and stall this out.
They are scary close. Freedom needs to stop anybody from getting this right now. They did. Cure and Zugrug anchoring. Curse for Team Freedom. Giants and Brightwing in top. Eventually, that will continue to push.
This is one of the moments where Gale Force is flaunting their decision-making, waiting out this tribute. They're not capping it. If they ended up trying to contest that, that's the only fight, again, that Team Freedom wants to be able to take. Now, wait out the curse. 20 is online. Look to initiate during a curse. That is all the things that you want to do whenever you see your opponent get a curse, and Cap is going to kick it off with that Storm Bolt. Didn't land, but he's going in.
He goes in with the Avatar. Michael Udall grabs a Dansky with the drag. Dansky's A-OK. Nasmus gets a cleanse to get back, but hit by a Storm Bolt. Everyone hoping for the resets for Gale Force.
The rewind. Nasmus still alive. The Dwarf Toss is the thing that seals the deal. Cure getting the stage dive out at a fraction of an HP. Horrified drop to try and peel out from Dansky, but Fan once more.
So it is Michael Udall using the Brush Stalker advantage. Polymorph seals the deal to take down a second person, and Michael Udall claims the life of Gul'dan. 3 kills in the curse of Team Freedom. ETC will get back and deal with those Giants that have been pushing the entire time in the top. But what did Freedom get? Not 20, not yet. There's a weakened keep in 43 seconds until everybody is back for Freedom.
Gale Force Esports wants this keep. They are very much marching towards it, and they are making it known to Team Freedom. It goes down.
More.
They're going for game. They're trying to abuse this here. We have 8 seconds for the Greyman. That's a go for the throw. If he can find a way to kill Li Ming, they might have an opportunity here. They, again, don't have necessarily the best defenses. It's about K1 Pro. 90%, the shielding removed. Nasmus is here to fight.
Polymorph stops Nasmus from getting on top of K1 Pro, but
60.
K1 is obliterated, and that's the first to go down. Cure, Inclusion, find it next. They take down
40.
Genji. King Caffeine is very low. Michael Udall and Akafe still bringing down the core to the best of Team Freedom's ability. A last
12.
second
They
ice
did it.
block.
5. No way. 4. King Caffeine. 2.
Cocoon?
What the hell?
There's no way, right?
Horrify.
There's no way, right?
Horrify it. Horrify, please.
Ah!
They did it.
Ah!
They did it. They made miracles happen.
Are you kidding me, Caleris?
Team Freedom. They defend on the core. They get the kill onto the Li Ming. They focus down onto the Genji, and they defend. But you know, what do they
get? No keep. There's no keep down. They're going to go for it.
Not like this, guys.
What else do you do? Your core's at 2%.
I mean, we'll find
Here
out.
we go. Li Ming will be the first to come up, just like Nasmus was with Greymane. Freedom get onto the core of Gale Force Esports. Can they do it? Can they take this down after the miracle defense?
The shielding's going to be removed. It's looking good for now. 70. K1 Pro, the only man to make anything happen. He can't do it. Team Freedom take the Cursed Hollow, and more importantly, take a lead 2-1 over Gale Force.
But I mean, they could have been either other team to get a victory in that game. Good grief!
Good grief. My cords all around, dude. I had stuff all over the place. I was just an emotional wreck there. That was absolutely astounding. I do feel like Team Freedom not pushing that tribute when the double boss is pushing outwards was a colossal setback in terms of decision making, and the only reason that game really got to a lose-lose scenario where, I mean, let's be real here, that core call in Gale Force, one right click in a different direction, the whole game can go down. You should not be proud of Team Freedom when they win a game like this, and so they have to go back to decision making at what point it got there. And think about that you talked about constantly the keep up on top and being a problem and worried about that boss. Now think about a situation beyond the curse point for both sides and everything else, like just getting out the tribute situation. Look at a boss when you have a global and somebody's constantly defending it and a fort pushing up on top, and you see the other one responsibly taken up on the bottom. Your opponent is very close to a point of lethality and has a lethal almost open for the game.
Exactly.
If you force over that tribute, you draw resources from the top boss and you fight over it, and bosses go push to push, and you have equal lethal pressure that they would have gotten on bottom. But if you don't force there, it's a free clear, and your opponent is still ahead by miles on the race to win the game. Like, it just doesn't add up in that type of situation. In all cases, it makes sense to at least try and threaten and posture around it. And I feel like their failure to do so had led them to make the next tribute that much more high risk, high reward, which led to the great decision-making of Gale Force going, well, we're not going to take this. We wait, we back off, we get 20, we fight. And that was all because of the tribute before that and their lack of pressure.
Well, thankfully, at least for Team Freedom, they had really good zoning in the next one. And they were too late to that tribute that was on Gale Force's side of the battleground. But let's take a look at the core throw defense. We're going to call this one a defense. This was not a throw. Amazing core defense from Team Freedom.
Biggest thing is who they focus. They focus the reset number 1, then you go for damage dealer number 2. Fan is the highest damage output onto the core. This is where Team Freedom almost makes a mistake, though. They all go for Mike Udall, and then Collusion's the only one looking towards the Brightwing. You either all into the Mike Udall or you all into the Brightwing. Ice Block's used to stall it out. One last tick. But, I mean, we know what happens from this point on. The Cocoon, I'll be honest, I had no idea where my Muradin went. I thought I saw the health bar, and I thought it was the cores. I was like, what's going on here?
Oh, yeah. They had the great Cocoon as Zugreg popped out, and then Horrify after this. It was perfectly timed. It had to be perfectly timed. That was the only way that they defend at this point.
Can you imagine being that guy if you end up hitting that Horrifying missing? Feels bad.
Or even just a little bit too late.
Yeah, just a fraction of a second, and the Muradin throws out the Stormbolt, and then you're like, feels bad. Clutch here from the members of Team Freedom. Again, that's why it's a bit more of a defense than it was that of an offense.
Yeah.
It was just brilliantly done from them to be able to hold off in that, and miracles were made. It's just, we still have another game. Neither team has won yet. Team Freedom here, they're close, but no cigar.
2-1 looks pretty good, especially as we head into our next battleground, Infernal Shrines, chosen by Team Freedom, but not a place that Gale Force is necessarily afraid of. They've done pretty well on Infernal Shrines, 4-1 throughout Phase 2.
4-1 onto Infernal Shrines. Infernal Shrines wasn't where I expected necessarily Team Freedom to be bumping.
It actually would be 4-2 because I did not write down the Sylvanas game.
We're just not talking about that one?
We need to talk about it.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about it then,
There
Gale.
was a Sylvanas game for Gale Force Esports on Friday versus Space Station. It did not go well.
How did it go? If
it did not go well.
Okay, we're just leaving it at that. We aren't going to talk about the lack of pressure whatsoever, just any angle like that.
It was not what you would expect from a Sylvanas game, how to play out. It did sort of seem like it was either a strategy that was hidden or a strategy, well, they were trying to hide strategies, so they picked this, or maybe just Gale Force thought they could get a very easy, fast victory. We've seen teams use that before, use Sylvanas specifically to try to just get a quick win and move on to the next game. But it set them back in the series that ultimately ended up being a 0-3 loss to Space Station.
It was the first game that set the tone for that series, and maybe part of the reason it had gotten down on the members of Gale Force so heavily. I do not expect a Sylvanas coming out in this game, but it's a little bit weird. Gale Force Esports in that series, they did what I considered unthinkable in terms of level of performance from them. To go 0-3 into that series, the first game in the Sylv, I told you, I mean, that's understandable. Game 2, also debatably, but by the time we got to the third, I didn't really think that they were capable of kind of overlooking an opponent as heavily as they did here. Against Team Freedom, though, it is apparent that they are very much playing up to par, more the Gale Force Esports playstyle. So I don't know if that would be too big of a concern now, as much as it would have been compared to what we had seen with them on
Space Station Gaming Series.
Yeah,